Same time I went to yeshiva, and back then, people used to write to the Rebbe for their birthday. There was just a period when they went to Yechidus for the Rebbe, and then at some point, the private Yechidus stopped, and people just wrote to the Rebbe for their birthday. And the Rebbe would answer with a letter. And this Bacher used to write a letter to the Rebbe every year for his birthday. And every year, the Rebbe would tell him, check your tefillin.
That's right. Very good. Very good.
And a good boy, he did due diligence, and he went to have his tefillin checked. And every year, the tefillin came back as kosher. But still, the Rebbe didn't stop at that. And every year, the Rebbe, he would write to the Rebbe, and every year the Rebbe would tell him, check your tefillin, check your tefillin. This went on for at least 7 years. Then he got married. And again he wrote to the Rebbe told him, check his tefillin. Check his tefillin. He's married for 3 years, has no children. And every year, and he writes to the Rebbe every year, the Rebbe tells him to check his tefillin. Well, after his 3rd year of marriage and not having children, not that was the catalyst for it, but nonetheless, he brought the tefillin to me. I never saw those tefillin before, and I checked the tefillin. And some of you might remember what we say in tefillin. We say, "V'hayikiriyach Hashem al eretz haknani, kasher nishba l'cha v'la'avosecha." Right? Now, v'la'avosecha means and to your fathers. This tefillin was written v'la'avosecha with a yud before the saf. It's supposed to be vav lamed aleph vez sav yud chaf, and he had it vav lamed aleph vez yud sav chaf. Whatever, it's not a word. It's not a word. But that's what was written over there. Now, typically, when I come across a mistake like that.
How do you know and see it?
Huh?
How do nobody see it?
Well, when I first come across something like that, I always think to myself, it's me. It's not the 12. You know. But I look again, I say, no, this is definitely wrong. At the time, as assistant to put a damper on my father. My father was a sofer, was Rebbe sofer. I was working in the house at the time. I said, you know what? How could it be that everybody missed out on this? So I take it down to my father, and I ask him, take a look at this parasha. What do you think? I'm not telling him anything. He said, I don't see anything wrong. Okay. Now, my father was not a person you challenge. Okay. But I said, you know what? I was in the right. I could. So I said, look again. Looks again. I don't see anything wrong. I said, look at the top line. Oh. So that's the answer to the question. How can somebody? It's difficult. You're looking at letters and letters and letters and letters all day long, and a lot of people, I'm sure there's statistics on this, the people when they read, they just read the first 2 letters, the last 2 letters, and a letter in the middle, and if they're all kind of there, you got the word. That's not how a sofer is supposed to operate. I'm not faulting anybody, but that's, you're supposed to be looking at letters, not words. Well, the end of the story is that he had the parsha changed. The sofer that wrote the tefillin changed the parshas for him, and 9 months later he had a daughter.
Wow. Fast acting solution.
Absolutely. In fact, she just got married. That daughter got married about a year ago, actually.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you check her tefillin?
We made sure she still doesn't have any.
But I think that was one of my earlier experiences. Another experience I had was I was learning at 770 at the time. And at the time, I had a policy. I still kind of have that policy. I don't take tefillin from anybody unless I can do it and have it ready for you for the next day. It's not right. I mean, you can bring it tomorrow. If I can't do it today, you know, many Bachim came in and asked me, can you do the tefillin today? I say no. No point. So I come into 770, and at that time, 770 wasn't as big as it is today. And the amount of people that commute over there is not the same. It's a different, and even during Tishrei time. So being there for many years, you get to know the different faces. Whether you saw them once a year, we saw them twice a year, but you get to see the different players, kind of. And I come into 770 on a Sunday morning for Seder. It was 11 o'clock Seder, and a guy says to me, he says, "Can you check my tefillin for me?" Never saw this guy before. And I said, "Well, actually, I can't, because I won't be able to have it ready for you for today." So he said, "Just take it anyway, because I just need the tefillin checked." I was reluctant to, but I took it. And I didn't check it Sunday. I didn't check it on Monday. It was first Tuesday morning that I checked this tefillin. And I had to fix a lot of the lameds. The tagging on the lameds were not proper. I fixed the lameds. And I worked between us and Dorm. I'd worked before, davening, before Seder Rishon, and then lunchtime and supper time, whatever. So it comes. So I was finishing up the tefillin, and I happened to look at the clock what time it was. Typically, as I say, I would look at it only to know what I could handle between then and now and Seder. So I saw it was about 10:15. I said, okay, I could probably do some more work. Okay. But I didn't make much of it at the time. It didn't matter. It's just a matter of knowing my schedule, what I can do. So I go to yeshiva, and I take the tefillin with me. I figured I'll see him, and I'll get his tefillin. And sure enough, same thing. I open the door, he's right there. And I hand him the tefillin. Like I never saw this guy before. I never saw him between Sunday and Tuesday. And boom, Sunday he gives it to me. Tuesday he gives it. I give it back to him. And he says, "Tell me, was anything wrong with the tefillin?" I said, "Yeah." I tell him what had to be fixed, etc. We have a standing room only over there. It's almost like the oil over here.
Funny place. Guys, everyone's over there. Come this way.
Anyway, so he says, "So you fixed the tefillin?" I said, "Yeah, I fixed the tefillin." He says, "Tell me, what time did you finish correcting my tefillin?" It's like, that was the first time I ever heard that question. Like, really, what time? Does it really matter? Now here I could have told him, been a nice guy and tell him I finished it on Sunday. And it's just on you. But I didn't. And could have told him Monday. Didn't. I didn't finish it this morning. This morning? What time this morning? So around 10:15. And then he tells his side of the story. He says he came here from Paris. He has medical issues. And everything was showing up positive, really bad. That's why he had his tefillin checked. He didn't tell me what the Rebbe told him to check or not. It didn't matter. In terms of my work, it doesn't matter. I have to do what I have to do regardless. And so he said that this morning at 10:15, was everything showed up negative. He didn't even put on the tefillin yet, but his tefillin were corrected and done by 10:15. It already had an effect on his medical. So when people ask me, can I take off all my mezuzahs and give them to you? Sure. Absolutely. The mitzvah mezuzah is where you have to have them up, and you have to give them to check every once in a while. So if you have to give them to check, you can't give them to check unless you take it off. And it doesn't say that you're not protected when you take them off. So if one room doesn't have mezuzah, what does it make of 20 mezuzah? Rooms don't have mezuzah. So those are two interesting stories where direct impact, but there's more. I had a story just about, I think it's about 6 years ago already, actually. I was in Baltimore, and a younger man came over to me. He says to me, he calls me on a Thursday. He says, "Can you check my tefillin mezuzahs for me?" I said, "Yeah." "Can I bring them all over to you?" He says, "Yeah." He only brings over his mezuzahs on Thursday. It was strange, but you know what? Whatever. People don't tell me in advance, I'm having problems and yada yada yada. It's just my tefillin check. Now, typically, I have an inkling as to what goes on when people call me at a random time. There's something going on. You don't have to tell me, okay? Especially when I look at the tefillin, you certainly don't have to tell me, okay? Not that I am a prophet or a rebbe or anything like that. I'm nobody. I'm just a simple guy doing my job. But I see enough things that you get an idea of what's going on. So, all right. So he gives me his mezuzahs. I check his mezuzahs. A lot of work. All right, I fix him. Give him back to him. Then Friday, he wants to know if he can bring over his tefillin on Friday. I said, fine. He brings over the tefillin on Friday. I usually don't like to work on Friday because it's a short day. And even in the summertime, it's short. You never know what you're going to get yourself into. So he brings it over on Friday. And now, this is important. Actually, perfect. Whose tefillin is this? These are yours, right? So this is you're a lefty, okay? Good. What I get? Huh?
Yeah,
okay.
Not a prophet.
So this is a lefty prayer tefillin. Now, the way the righty's tefillin is this yud, this piece that sticks out is sticking out toward your heart, correct? It's on this side of the box, and it sticks out that way, correct? So on a lefty, there are people, as in this case, that feel that it has to be sticking out this way, because just like this is facing my body, my heart, this too has to face my body. Well, many, many years ago, I asked this question of Rabbi Dworkin. If anybody heard of him, Rabbi Dworkin was the Lubavitch Rav at the time, back in the day, in 770. And I asked him, and his answer to me was a very interesting answer. The way Rabbanim typically answer. Okay, they don't answer yes or no. It's always with something quick, a quip. So he tells me, he says, so for lefty, do we write the parshas backwards? I mean, if this has to be sticking out because it has to kind of conform to the way the body is and all that, so maybe the parshas in here should too be written backwards. But obviously we don't. So the obvious answer is that we don't change this and that to be sticking out. Okay. So back to my story. So he brings me his tefillin, and he happened to be a lefty. He didn't tell me he was a lefty, but you don't have to tell me. I can see it over here. So, and he had it just as it is over here. So if anybody wants to see it, so you see it's sticking out. So I change it, but I know this guy is going to have an issue with me on this. So I tell him in advance. I tell him, when I give it back to him, I tell him, I said, by the way, I changed the knot, and this is what Rabbi Dworkin had said to me, and this is the way I'm doing it. Okay. This is on Friday. On Monday, before Mincha, he meets me, Shol. He says, I want to tell you an interesting story. He says, on Thursday, my wife was due any time. And on Thursday, she had an appointment.
That's also Dorkin.
That's Dorkin, not Dworkin.
Different.
Right. So my wife goes to the doctor, and the doctor tells her that unfortunately the baby is going to be born as a breech birth.
What's that?
Upside down.
Upside down. And they were trying all day Thursday and Friday to get an appointment with the doctor that can do something about it. And they couldn't find anybody. We had an appointment this morning. This is Monday morning. We had an appointment with the doctor. And the doctor looks and says, there's no breech birth.
Not with a sit down.
Do your own math.
That's really good.
Are you gonna switch his tone?
Am I going to switch his film? No, I'm going to switch to the way the strap is.
Wait, so there was a breech birth and then it wasn't.
What's that?
There's a breech birth and then it was just gone.
Yeah.
Yeah, the child turned around. I turned around the knot and the child turned around.
No.
Yeah, as he was doing it, the child was like...
Do you think I'd be sitting here in front of such an audience making bubble pieces? Really? You think I have nothing better to do with my time?
That story is making you crazy, but the one about the guy with all the medical issues and it just went back to negative, that's nothing. That's good.
Right.
Yeah, how do they...
Right.
All the baby had to do was swing the bill.
Right. Well, I'll do another story. Talking about, speaking about birthing.
It was right after you switched it around.
I can't tell you exactly when it happened, but because I know I switched it on Friday, and on Monday they were at the doctor. So it could have happened on Friday afternoon, could have happened Shabbos afternoon. I don't know, but that's not my business. But the reality is that the knot was changed, and the baby was changed. Had another story with the birthing issue, and that was many, many years ago. I was living in Boston at the time, and had a customer from California. I used to write a film for his children, for himself as well. And it was Erev Pesach. And he calls me, he says, the Rebbe said I have to have my tefillin checked. All right, it's Erev Pesach, it's a customer, do what you got to do. So he sends me this film, and the parshas were fine. There's nothing wrong with the parshas, per se. However, the parshas are supposed to be sitting in this part of the box. Although there's an opening lower, it opens farther down, but the parsha must sit in the top part of the box.
So you make the leather, you pinch the leather so that it doesn't slide down?
Well, no, well, not up to there. But either that or you can make it tight. So you have to have it that it stays snugly within the top part. And the bottom part is only b'diavad, if it falls on the bottom part. So we typically, some of you might have seen that I might put some pieces of parchment or some ritzuas, pieces of strap in the bias. That's to hold the parsha in place so that it doesn't fall down. So anyway, this pair of tefillin that he sent me, the parsha had fallen down within the base. So after I checked it, I wedged it back in place in a way that it should not fall down again. And I send it back to the guy. About a month later, he calls me. He says, Rabbi, I want to tell you, a month ago, when I sent you the tefillin to check, you see, my wife is pregnant. And she went to the doctor. And the doctor told her that the placenta dropped. Does anybody know what a placenta is? It's the sac that's around the baby. So the placenta dropped. It's not supposed to be there. The baby is supposed to be there. The placenta is supposed to be on top. So the placenta dropped. So I wrote to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe said to check the tefillin. He checked the tefillin, and he sent them back. And this morning, my wife gave birth to a healthy child. Usually with the placenta dropped, the child doesn't make it.
And they
But the
found
placenta
out that it went
back. The placenta went back. Yeah. Yeah. So again, I'm not here as a prophet or a magic maker, nothing. I'm just doing my work. I had had a story just about a month ago. A family in Baltimore, a similar story, where they had, the wife gave birth to a daughter, and the daughter had to be incubated. She was in a lot of trouble, and they were going to figure out holding her for about a month or so. And the mother herself, she too was having some medical issues, which she never had. And the guy decided, he said, well, maybe I should check my mezuzahs. He didn't bring me his film though, just about his mezuzahs. And he take off the mezuzahs. So number one, he realized that the front door mezuzah was just a case. There was no mezuzah in there. That's besides the rest of the mezuzahs in the house needed a lot of work as well. We took care of that, and I gave it back to him. That evening, when he went to see his wife and baby in the hospital, the doctor says it looks like we're going to discharge both of them tomorrow.
A month ago this happened.
About a month or 6 weeks ago, yeah. And they were thinking about holding the child for about 6 weeks or so in the incubator.
The doctor didn't think that was weird.
Well, they do. A lot of times I hear these stories and they tell me, the doctor was like surprised, like, how did this happen? Years ago, there was a guy that wanted to, this is really way back when, this probably goes back about 50 years ago. No, not 50, 45 or so, where the guy came, he wanted to have an audience with the Rebbe. He told him that in those days you can't have an audience with the Rebbe. So he says, so how, I want to communicate with the Rebbe. So well, you can write a letter to the Rebbe. She writes a letter to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe tells him basically that he should be careful, check his tefillin, check his mezuzahs, and to keep kosher. Those are the three things the Rebbe told him. So he decided he's got to do that. Well, so I went to Hasher's house. He didn't have any tefillin. He didn't have any mezuzahs on his house. We put up mezuzahs on his house. Hasher's house, as I said, gave him tefillin. And his issue was that he had cancer in his arm. And the doc, I believe it was the left arm.
And he was a righty?
Huh?
And he was a righty?
Yeah, I think so. Put on tefillin, put on mezuzahs, kashed his home. And the doctor was already saying that they're going to have to amputate his arm. That's how bad it was. And 3 days later, he went back to the doctor. The doctor says, doesn't say anything wrong.
What?
Nothing wrong.
Did he wrap the film that day you gave it to him?
Yeah.
No cancer?
Nothing. These are some of the stories.
Does
that make sense, Copy?
Doesn't make any sense.
What?
Makes perfect. Maybe
Well,
you can show us the inside of the film for people.
You guys see it all the time.
There's some new,
Huh?
there's some new visitors. Maybe we've never seen it.
I don't know. This is a hard period film to open. So I have to.
If you want to, you can open up mine and check mine. The Robert, the last yeshiva where I was last week, told me I should get mine checked.
Okay.
When's
Yeah.
the next time you're going to be here?
It's a good question. Probably in about a month.
Okay, thank you.
I'll try and be here once a month.
Rabbi, how often one should check
Okay, so that's a very good question. The question is, how often does one need to check his film? So according to halacha, actually, if one wears the film every day, they do not need to check them at all. I know it's a surprise. So why am I here advertising this, right? I'm checking film. You wear film every day, right?
Once every 7 years?
It says never. If you wear film every day, you do not need to check your film. Okay? The next step is, by mezuzah, it says that they have to be checked twice in 7 years. So from there, some people derive that if it applies for its mezuzahs, it applies for its tefillin as well. Or while I'm giving it to the mezuzahs, I might as well give my tefillin. Okay. Then there are some opinions that say that it's brought in Kitzur Shulchan Aruch actually that the scrupulous people, they want to check their tefillin and mezuzahs in the month of Elul before Rosh Hashanah. And the Rebbe encouraged that approach. And that's why I'm here so often. Because people over here like to listen to the Rebbe.
I was wondering, not to kind of put a sad thought that popped in my head. Would it be possible that getting it to phone checked so regularly could create problems, just like we're putting the scrolls in backwards on accident?
Yes, that's right. There's a possibility. In fact, there was a pair of tefillin I checked yesterday, if I may, that the one that put the tefillin together, with the Rabbeinu Tam, put the Shema in the wrong place. Because typically it goes in order Kaddish, Vayakiv Yacha, Shema, Vayim Shema. And for Rabbeinu Tam, it's Kaddish, Vayakiv Yacha, Shema is at the end, and Vayim Shema is in the middle. And he had the Shema in the same place as we would put it for Rashi. Well, not really. Not really, because the Shal Yad was the Rabbeinu Tam.
4.5.
So 1 second. Let me finish this thought. So, yes, and in fact, in a lot of the Frum world, they don't check their tefillin because they're afraid that the tefillin are going to get ruined. Not because of errors, what you're suggesting, but they're afraid that the bottom are going to get ruined, it's not going to be so nice, yada, yada, yada. But then again, does that mean the person shouldn't get their oil changed regularly? Mm-hmm. Because they're afraid that the mechanic is going to misdiagnose something? L'havdil. I'm not saying we have to do what we have to do, and hopefully that we have good shluchim that are doing their work.
2 questions. The first is, I've heard or I read once that because the ink isn't the same, we don't know how to make the ink that they had by times of the Mishnahs and the Gemara, that never checking it doesn't really work anymore because it's not as fluid or something like that.
I would beg to disagree with that, but it's okay.
Okay, fine.
It's just one man's opinion.
Okay, and could you speak a little bit about why some people glue their batim closed and why other people don't glue their batim closed, and which one is preferable?
I can't speak for anybody else other than for myself.
Okay. What?
Best. He wants to know why some people glue the bottom together, and if it's good to or should be done, could be done, or whatever. And the answer is,
What's the other option?
just leave it, just sew it up as with a stitch, and that's it. So I'm assuming, now one should not assume, but why one would want to glue it is so that they don't want that the bottom should come apart. Because some people will notice sometimes that the bottom of the base is kind of opening up a little bit. They're concerned that water might get in there, unless you go swimming with your tefillin. I don't know how water's going to get in there, but that's the time you're not going out davening in the rain.
Rainy sun.
Huh?
A rainy miftzayim.
A rainy miftzayim, okay. A rainy mekabel light, they say. But so right. So these are. But then again, so is that a requirement? So this morning I checked the prayer tefillin where somebody glued the hairs that stick out, glued the hairs so they don't fall back in. I mean, typically they should not fall back in because it's closed with a flap and it's holding it in place. So is glue a problem? It can be a problem. So typically we just leave it natural. Anything that's not natural in tefillin is not suggested. Tefillin is supposed to be natural. It's a natural height, natural. Everything in this box is natural. Should be. Can't guarantee it. But then I'll tell a story, if I may. Can I answer both of your questions? Okay. I'll tell a story that has nothing to do with anything I do, but it's related to what I do. And it's a very important story. Many years ago, again, there was a person that was davening in shul, and his mitzvah, the strap from the shal yad, tore. And the gabbai in the shul told him, he says, in the Shemus, there's a strap of a Ritzua Shal Yad for the hand, but it's from Rabbeinu Tam, it's not Rashi. Now, halachically, you're allowed to change from Rabbeinu Tam to Rashi, b'di'evet, because you're going up in Kedusha, you're not going down. You can't go from Rashi to Rabbeinu Tam. So the Gabbai says, I have a strap from Rabbeinu Tam, that you might want to use it for now, but when you get a chance, you should change it to get a new strap. And you know how the tendency of people are? They forget, it works, if it ain't broke, we don't fix. So it works, it's fine, we'll go on. Well, time goes on, and he's having problems with his arm. And he writes to the Rebbe. And when the Rebbe tells him, check your tefillin. Brings it to the sofa, checks the tefillin. Everything is fine. Gives it back to him. It's fine. This goes on for a while. The Rebbe keeps telling him to check his tefillin, and everything is fine. And one day he's sitting in a shir. And at the shir they're discussing this subject. And it dawned on him, hey, my strap is a Rabbeinu Tam and a Rashi pair. And I remember the guy told me when he gave it to me that I need to change it. You know what? Let me go and change it. Goes and changes, buys a new strap, has it put in. No more problems with his arm. No more problems with his arm. Now, this is something I can't tell. This is something you're the only one maybe that will know about this. But these are critical things related to tefillin. How small things, just like I told the story, the first story about the dot between the Gmail and the com. Email doesn't go anywhere. People ask me, was there anything major wrong with my tefillin? Anything major wrong with my mezuzahs? You know what? If one dot is wrong, that is major. You don't need to have the person is missing a word or a word is wrong. Just the fact that one dot is wrong, the connection is off. The Wi-Fi connection.
Can you open those?
I can't. Oh, hang on.
What's the issue? Let's say that a person had a tefillin that he checked, but with time became no kosher, and then when he checked, they told him they're not kosher, we have to fix them. All that time, the tefillin were probably not kosher. He didn't fulfill the mitzvah, or he did?
Very good question. So the Gemara actually asks that question. So if somebody buys a pair of tefillin from a reputable person, or for that matter has a check by a reputable person, and well, again, that's not proof either, but bought by a reputable person is more appropriate over here, because like I said with the strap, you might have a check, I don't know what's doing with the strap. I don't know what's doing with this box. I don't know what's doing with the parchment. I don't know anything. All I can know is what I look at, what the paper, the letters I'm looking at. So the Gemara says, the Gemara asks the question, if somebody bought from a reputable person, and then years later they have them checked, and they find that there's a problem, missing a word, an extra word or something, is that a problem? So the Gemara says, according to Rabbi Yehuda, that no, it's not a problem. Because since you did what you were supposed to be doing, therefore it counts as you did your job.
So what's the difference between Rabbeinu Tam's and a Rashi? So what's the difference between a Rashi and a Rabbeinu Tam?
The Ritzua, the strap itself, nothing. It's just that it was used for Rabbeinu Tam. So therefore it takes on itself the Kedusha of a Rabbeinu Tam, which is not as strong of a Kedusha as that of a Rashi.
If it's not as strong of a kedusha, then why is there a hesitance in certain communities to throw Rabbeinu Tam into your own?
That's a different discussion.
I mean, meaning you would think that because it's something that you do later, it's an extra hitter, that it's even more mekadesh than.
Right, because so even if I may, in Lubavitch, many moons ago,
wasn't always right. You had to ask.
It wasn't always that you put on Rebbeinu Tam either. And it was always, and typically back then, it was when the person turned 18, they would ask the Rebbe, and the Rebbe would at that point say yay or nay. But at some point the Rebbe said that it's time that everybody should, and I didn't put on Rebbeinu Tam when I got bar mitzvah. It wasn't the thing, if I may, back then. It was only for older bachar. The same goes for married people. And by the other chassidim, it was only people that when they get married they put on Rebbeinu Tam. Again, because you take on a new dynamic. So if you take on a new dynamic, take on other things.
You were saying how earlier, like some sofers, like we'll see certain things. Like you were saying, like some will miss something. Do you recommend going to a different sofer every year?
That's a good question. Some people, I've heard that suggestion that I don't want to give to the same sofer because last year he cautioned what he's going to say this year. He didn't know what he was doing last year. Yeah, there's a bias there. Okay, so I would answer that this way. And I got some self-interest here. It's okay. I'm entitled. That it depends on the sofer. And depend on why you went to the sofer. In other words, if you went to a specific sofer, and it was specifically, I want to go see that sofer, and it's not just anybody can check my tefillin. And for whatever reason, you have a trust in that person. So that's one kind of a person. Versus somebody that's just going, I need my tefillin checked. Who can check my tefillin? Oh, so this store checks tefillin. Okay, I'll go here. So then, you didn't go there for the sofer per se, you went there for yourself. So then, for yourself, then you might want to go to a different sofer because those two eyes are going to see the same thing. But if you go there for the expertise, if I may, and I'm going to say this because I don't like to talk about myself, but I've had people that have heard the story with the Balavel Secha, that they had 9 months later a child. They heard that story, because this story has been, as I say, the girl just got married, probably about in the 20s. This is over 20 years old, the story. So people heard the story and they say, that's the guy I want to go to. Because he's going to find that nuance. And I have to say, I have a crazy eye. I'll see if you show me a picture with all different numbers, all the same number, and one number is different, give me 10 seconds and I'll have that number for you. I have a crazy eye. I know it's a crazy or good eye, but it's an eye that sees what's odd in the picture. So, and if I may, again, self-aggrandizing myself, if I may, of all the tefillin and mezuzahs that I've written, not one tefillin or mezuzah ever came back to me as missing a letter or an extra letter. Not one. And I've written hundreds of tefillin, thousands of mezuzahs, not one. I'm not bragging about myself. It's just I've got crazy eye. If I could see it, I put it away, but it wouldn't go out. I'm not saying I don't make mistakes, but it wouldn't go out. And that's really what you want. You want somebody that's looking at the letters, not at the words. And people are surprised. I have my pictures. I have pictures of different mezuzahs and tefillin that I've checked. Here, I had this is a typical story that you guys will be fit for you guys to ask this question actually, because you say, I sit here. You see, I come here at 9 o'clock, and I sit here straight through. Like last night, I was here till 9 o'clock. 9 to 9. Right? And you saw me more than anybody else. I sit here, and that's all I'm doing. Okay? And you would think my eyes go bad. Okay? So I'm going to tell you a story. It was one day in the month of Elul. I was at home, and I was checking a lot of tefillin. I must have checked about 14 or 15 pair of tefillin that day. See? And just before I was finished for the day, I had to put together a new pair of tefillin. And I get parshas from a certain sofer, and he has to check with the computer yet too. And I checked the tefillin, and it's supposed to be Lamantia Torah Hashem Beficha, and it said Lamantia Torah Hashem Beficha. This is at 12 o'clock at night, after checking 14 pair of tefillin. So in case you're wondering if I ever go bonkers with my eyes, I don't say I don't, but there's living proof that it's not. If your eye is on the ball, it's on the ball. It's just if it's not on the ball, then it can be at 10:30 as well, 10:30 in the morning.